Yo guys, what's up? Mark here, your Kackpappe from Twitch, and today with an build guide video because you guys wanted me to do that. You want it, you deserve it, and now you will get it. But first of all, let me say thank you again to all of you guys that watched my videos. Let me a comment in the videos. I really appreciate that, because it helps me to get better in every situation. Thank you for the huge support on Twitch and with everything you do to helping me growing up. Thank you. Now right into the build guide. I just try to make it as short as possible because I know I'm talking a lot and sometimes too much. We just try to keep focused. So we starting with the build guide with two little things before we show up everything like the skills or the arguments or the items. I just made a video guide from this Valor plate, but I made some changes till yet, and I'm really happy with these changes because this build now plays really smooth, and the damage you are dealing is really huge. There are two things you have to focus in. The right stats are the first important thing, and the second one is the right items. Let us start with the stats. You are need the chance to inflict bleed, and the physical damage, and the physical damage is the same with the damage on bleeding enemies. You don't need a high crit chance, because a high crit chance doesn't give you the opportunity to inflict the mobs with bleed. It doesn't matter. A high crit chance stacks almost your overall damage, because this bleeding stat, this dot, cannot be crit. So that's why you don't have to really have a focused look on that. Also the critical hit damage. The more you got, the more damage you are dealing, because not every mob is inflict with bleed with the first hit, and during the fight there are very much mobs in the higher stages of the tower that don't fall with the first hit that we do. So the higher your crit chance and critical damage is, the more damage you are dealing over time. But we are heavily focused in this build to send some really heavy damage bombs on our Sword of Courage out of it. Now let's jump right into it, and we have the first look at the skills. So switch fast the camera. What is really important in this build? The weapon technique is really important in this build. The alignments, I think, alignments is the really important thing you have to focus in, and nothing else. So these two things are really important: alignments and the weapon technique. The other things I used, you know me now, I don't change this type of skills for other Valor plates. I play with these skill tree every other Valor plate, and there are some things that help you out in a couple of situations. So have a look on your resistances. I just said in every build guide, it's really important for your standability and stay alive. The more you got, the better you are handling the game. But there's a cap, like 55% at the beginning, and if you are high in the Ascension level, the cap is 57. You should reach that on every single resistance. but you can't deal it every time, so you are fine if you have 2 stats maxed, and this is the physical resistance and the air resistance. These 2 things you should be focused in. Next step we are looking at are the stats. We are almost talked about. You don't see a secondary weapon because we don't need a secondary weapon. You could choose, you could try out some things, but I will give you the fundament of this build, and what you are doing with that and try to do with that, it's up to you. You see in my primary stats, the bleed chance is up to 67%. And this is a huge amount of the chance to inflict the mobs with bleed. As you can see, my physical damage is also really high pushed in stat because of I'm really focused in the secondary stats on my items and my arguments. What you can see there is the plus damage that we are dealing to the mobs that are inflicted with bleed. So you can't see this here in the detailed stats. I'm missing the stat, but we hope that we are seeing this stat in the future on our details. So jump right into our gear. What do we need? We need the Sword of Courage. Without the Sword of Courage, you don't have the chance to make this build work, because the Sword of Courage is our main damage dealer because of the primary effect. Wherever you inflict bleed, shoot up to 2 projectiles that each deal 4,884 physical damage to an enemy. So this is a really high number because this Sword of Courage is the primal version. In the normal version, you're dealing like up to 3k, 3.5k. But it's also a huge damage number because instead of if we are growing up the number of the physical damage, these are our primary damage. The numbers going up in the up to 10 or 20,000 K. And this is really, really huge because every projectile deals such a huge amount of damage. As you can see in the secondary stats, it is good if the sword got a crit chance and crit damage on it because it gives you, what I said, the overall damage. But the really important thing is the chance to inflict bleed, because you only have 3 items on your offensive gear, like the weapon, the amulet, and the talisman, where you can have these stats. So the higher the number, the better you are handling this build. So next one, Amulet of the Betrayer. It's not my favorite, but I don't find any other amulet with such brutal secondary stats as this one. So you can use every other amulet that you have found with nearly like this secondary stats. So we have the physical damage that brings up our projectiles from the Sword of Courage. We have the crit chance. We have the chance to inflict bleed, also doubled, as you can see. And this is the main thing we are looking for. Same with our Lion Talisman, and the Lion Talisman is the talisman you have to use and you have to play with. The other talisman, which also deals physical damage, is not good as this talisman because you gain with every crit weapon technique charge and weapon technique charge speed. So wherever you perform the weapon technique, you are unbeatable. The mobs cannot hit you, so we want to stand as much or do as much weapon techniques as we can. So use this one and have a look on the chance to inflict bleed. As you can see, there are also Warhammer damage pushed. It's not the perfect one, but to find the perfect one, it's a really hard job, as you all guys know to play the game. I have Swice and Brace in it because I am looking for some resistances, but I'm also focused in the physical damage to push. Yeah, you have every time to look at the resistances because it gives you very much standability, but if you got the chance to get such a ring where you can push this damage, so this is a really heavy push. So as you can see, almost here are 42%. These 15 we growing our physical damage really heavy up. And this is really important because these physical damage goes directly into the number of the projectiles that we are shooting. The next ring is a green ring, which you can grow up to legendary, and I think it is the really best ring for this build because it gives you a 10% chance to inflict bleed. So we are focused in to inflict every mob with bleed, because if a mob bleeds, we are shooting projectiles, and the higher this number is, the more chance you have to inflict the mobs with bleed, the more damage you are dealing, because every mob that bleeds, you have the chance to shoot these projectiles. And also you can see here plus damage to bleeding enemies. This is the second important stat which you have to look on, because this is a really important stat for the arguments. As Livestone and Banner, there are no really like must items. Use whatever you are find with the chance to inflict bleed or chance to inflict alignments or ailments, sorry for that. You can use everything what you are comfortable with. Right up to the arguments, you see that I got very much green arguments. The reason why I'm using the green arguments is it gives you a really huge amount of standability, and this is really important for the higher tower stages. You can also change that if you want to use like a Twilight Bloom or other things to raise up your overall damage you are dealing with. But beware of, you are losing a huge amount of standability, and as you can see, or as you've seen in the stream, this build works with these things really fine. So first of all, the Lion's Pride with the resistances. With why we are using the Lion's Pride, we have to use Fortitude, because it allows us that these overhealth that we gain are not fall back or does not degenerate. It's really important to use these two things in a couple. Glamour is one of the things that let us growing the damage really huge. So as you can see, it is a vitality argument, but you have also the chance in the secondary stats to grow up the physical damage. So this is why we are using this. But the main thing why we are using this is that we are getting 105% plus damage to each mob or each enemy that got an alignment on. And we are inflict the mobs with bleed, so we got one ailment, sorry. So that means we are getting guaranteed 105% to these mob that is inflicted with bleed. And as you can see in the previous from the items, we are also want to grow up the damage to enemies that are inflicted with bleed. Everything is fine. So this is the synergy what we are looking for this build. We got a 30, and the 30 is important for the boss fights. You jump right into the boss with your weapon technique, and the next few hits you are landing on are guaranteed on a weak point, so it multiplies. If the boss is inflicted with bleed, the numbers are going really crazy. As you can see in the stream, this is really, really huge. And another thing why we are melting the bosses really fast is the entropy. And yeah, I know it, this entropy is a god roll. Really, there is nothing more to say. This entropy is a god roll. Physical damage, damage on bleeding enemies, and again physical damage. Dude, there is nothing more to say. And if you are using the Archon in the primary effect of this argument, you are dealing 3 projectiles, where every projectile deals 14,672 physical damage to an enemy. With the multiplier of the physical damage that we are taking up, there are numbers you are wondering. Really, you are wondering. Also, my really favorite augment, you see it in every kind of my builds, the Force Barrier. It is really important because you are one-hitting mobs with your projectiles, so you hit also the Lion's Pride. You gain your overhealth really fast, really fast. And in boss fights, you're hitting the weak points where we're using Swice and Brace, so you don't have to have a hard focus on that or be scared that you can't hold it. You will hold it. And while you are hold this thing, it is really important to use because your attacks cannot be stopped. So this helps you a lot against these fat shield enemies, these enemies from the area, because you have to breach them to deal the big damage numbers, and this helps you a lot. We want to make a good synergy with the weapon technique and the Lion Talisman, so every charge speed that we gain from a critical hit, yeah, it is not really important to have the big number, but if we are dealing a crit, we are gaining weapon technique charge speed, so the often or the more you can use your weapon technique, the better it is. We are using also Divine Conduit. I love this because whenever we gain a hit, we gain 50% Arcane Fury charge speed for 10 seconds, and this helps us in some situations where we are close to finish the Arcane Fury and to use it. It is my thing. Last but not last and least, the Scorch. I hope I said correctly. Gain 7% shield charge whenever you defeat an enemy. So this is really important because people are wondering why I'm using the shield smash often and really often, because your shield attacks are every time, it doesn't matter in which kind of Arcane Fury stance you are dealing physical damage every time. If you have weapons with fire damage on it, it doesn't matter, your shield damage is every time a physical damage, and this is also a chance with these physical damage to inflict the mobs with bleed. So the more often we can smash our shield, the more chance we have to inflict the mobs with bleed. So this is, I think, a very good synergy we can take with, and as you can see, the secondary stats are also on point for that. That is what it is. Some people just said to me, switch these ring. Yeah, you can do this. You can use also True Strike Ring to increase your physical damage, but you are losing 10% you are losing 10% chance to inflict the mobs with bleed, and if the mob do not bleed, you don't deal the damage that we are looking for. So in my opinion, I just tried it. Yeah, it worked, but it worked better with this ring. And if you are really lucky and got this ring with also physical damage, you have almost a god roll and a really good thing. There is a last thing to say, because yeah, I know at the time, but I have to show you something, because this is really important to know if you are playing with a Sword of Courage. You have a circle, and if you inflict the mob with bleed, the sword will shoot the projectiles, and these sword shoot the projectiles in a range. And if the mobs are out of this range, you don't shoot any projectiles. So you have to guarantee that you are hitting a mob or smash your shield, that the mobs are in your range. So for example, let me show you this in a really fast situation in the tower. As you can see what I mean. Because if we are fighting in one area and there are spawning mobs in another area, we are not able to shoot the projectiles to them. So we are looking where the mob is. So one projectile, and as you can see, the projectile only hits these only mob, not these mob. Now I hit him and I just sent these projectiles, as you can see, to the other enemy, which is really close to us. Like these two. I just hit him and you see the projectile flying, but not to these two guys. So, really important thing if you are playing this build, make sure that the mobs are really close to each other to deal the maximum damage of these projectiles. And as you can see, what I have done so far, I just run around, hit the mob, and nearly every second hit, I think, is guaranteed with the bleeding effect. So, as we have looking here, we are using our weapon technique, and as you can see, down, almost down. We're using our weapon technique, almost down. And there are the flying numbers, as you can see. There was a 12k hit. After that, there was a 16k hit. And that is what the huge damage part of this build is. Again, 13k hit, and you see my overhealth is not going down, is not going to drop. It is really easy. And this is what the multiplier means. For example, you have 5k damage, and we got 160% physical damage on top. 5k went up to 13 to 16k, and this is really heavy, because as you know, your normal attack does like 4 or 7k. It's huge. It is really huge. And because of these strong resistances we are got, as you can see here, instead of these huge amount of green arguments, you are really fine and should not struggle with that. So this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Sorry for that. You are welcome. Come up to my stream on Twitch. Check out our community. If you are playing on the PlayStation 5, we can play together if you need help. Don't be shy. Come in. Just let us know and have a great time. If you want to support me, you can do that at best with supporting me on Twitch. This YouTube is only the thing that I am using to bring these informations to you, but every kind of support is welcome. So guys, Thank you. Have a great time. Have fun with that build. And let me know what you are thinking about it. If it's good or not, every comment is welcome. See ya.